Welcome back. Opening for business, the Texas and Mississippi governors announcing that all businesses can open at 100% capacity, lifting the state's mask mandates as well. But the Texas plan quickly being criticized from the leader of California, Governor Gavin Newsom, tweeting that the move is, quote, absolutely reckless. But how about Newsom focuses on the problems that he's got in his own state? Listen.
We are enjoying a significant surplus, operating surplus this year, mostly one time, that we are certainly committed to working with those same bargaining units that stepped up for us last year to address their concerns moving into the future.
Now, California is on track to have a $19 billion surplus by July of this year due to raising taxes on some businesses, plus cutting spending, borrowing money, and even pulling from the state's savings account. The excess may trigger a state law that would actually require refunds to some taxpayers. Joining me now to discuss it, Mike Huckabee, former Arkansas governor and a Fox Business contributor. Governor, great to have you tonight. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Jackie. You know, when I heard this, I'm thinking all those businesses that have paid a lot of taxes in California now realize they were overtaxed by $19 billion. This is what California does. It's chasing business out of their state because they keep raising taxes. The net result is they tax people too much. It wasn't California spending too little. They overtax their people, and that's why they got a surplus.
Well, let me ask you this. You know, you're speculating here, but why this kind of mismanagement? Because that's really a gross problem. The fact that you've overtaxed, you've chased business away, you've chased residents away. They've gone to red states where they can be taxed less and actually live a little bit freer as well, especially during the pandemic. I mean, how could Newsom get this so wrong?
I think he's got a lot of things wrong. I mean, this is the guy that thinks it's okay for him to go out and have a dining experience with his pals, sitting very close together and not wearing a mask. But for heaven's sakes, don't let the regular California people do that. Don't even let them go to church. So he's been so unbelievably restrictive on everybody but himself. That's why he's facing a recall. I think it's going to be successful. I honestly believe the people of California, including a big bunch of Democrats, are going to say enough of this. He lets people sleep on the streets and fills the streets with drug paraphernalia and used needles. He doesn't do anything to stop those kind of situations that are very dangerous and detrimental. He won't open the schools back. He's totally beholden to the teachers' unions. But this is a guy that wants to keep everybody locked down unless they're in his club. Yeah. People are sick of that kind of duplicity.
And keeping the schools closed is obviously such a huge issue for residents there. Parents are absolutely outraged. The children are suffering. And the state's got $6.6 billion that it's allocated to help reopen the schools, to reopen them safely. Yet he's bowing down to the pressure of the teachers' unions who are saying, we won't step into the classroom unless we have that vaccine. Governor, there are a lot of people out and about in different parts of the country that don't have underlying health conditions, that wear a mask, that wash their hands and go to work because it's important to teach these children and get them back into the classrooms. Why is it different when it comes to the teachers?
I don't understand it, Jackie. It makes no sense. And you know, we keep hearing, let's follow the science. Well, the science has been very clear. Kids are in far greater danger by not going to school than they are by going to school. They need the education. They need the social interaction. We're going to pay a big price in coming years for these kids who have lost a year of their education. And their parents have lost a lot of their income. It has been especially hard on single-parent homes and people who are stretched to be able just to put food on the table when they can't go to work because they got to stay home and take care of their children. We're going to see big results from this. And the closure of so much of our society means people didn't get cancer screenings.
Oh, yeah.
The rates of cancer deaths are going to go up. It's greatly, I think, unknown just how much of a tragedy we're going to face. And the science has told us that. But some of these governors, they love these lockdowns. They want to keep their people locked up for forever as they can. I think people are getting a little tired of that and Dr. Fauci's gloom and doom message. They like what Texas is doing and Mississippi and Florida.
Yeah.
Those are the model states.
And the numbers in those states, Governor, aren't worse than what we're seeing in California. You're talking about following the science when it comes to the schools. He didn't follow the science when it came to restaurants and businesses either. Essentially, really jabbing his own economy right there at home. And I know he was concerned about those intensive care unit rates, but at the same time, there was no evidence showing that more people would be sick if they safely entered back into the workforce.
And so many of the experts, like Dr. Marty McCary and others, are saying we'll have herd immunity by April, May at the latest. This is the first time in history, Jackie, when in a pandemic, we have locked up the healthy people. Normally, we quarantine the people who are sick or the ones who are most vulnerable.
Yeah.
This is the first time in history where we've done it to the people who are healthy, and the result is we've just about destroyed our entire economy doing it.
Final point I want to make, in California specifically, they're talking about possibly banning the development and the building of new gas stations. It also is one of the places in the country, for example, where gas prices are the highest. I know that the Biden administration is making this huge push towards green energy and towards electric vehicles. We've heard, a lot of the companies are planning to design their fleets in that way. But is that ultimately, this road that we're going down, this rabbit trail, shouldn't there be some sort of a balance between what we have now and how we see the future being versus being so extreme at this particular moment in time?
Absolutely, Jackie. I mean, the market ultimately will drive us toward green energy when it's convenient to do it and when it's cost efficient to do it. In the meantime, we have several hundred years of an abundance of energy that we could be using until we can develop it. And when we do, it'll go there.
Right.
But it ought to be market driven, not politically driven as it is in California. I just say if you live in California, I hope you're not the last one to be there and have to turn out the lights when you leave.
Governor Mike Huckabee, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for your time tonight.